welcome to our Business Helping Business live stream. And I'd like to start off by saying thank you to the Morinville News that's been sharing this every week. And I have a special guest here today, the Economic Development Officer for Morinville, Brad White. And I'm going to check with him when I get him on here that I have his title correct. And I'd like to also thank my other mastermind group members who may or may not be with us today. I know all of the guys are busy doing a bunch of things, but Glenn Walker, Lee Hodgins, and David Kincaid. So without further ado, let's get rocking out. All right, Brad. So I'm going to bring you in here and unmute you and put us in gallery view and so that everybody can see everybody. And how are you doing today, Brad?
I'm good. How are you doing today, Paul? Good to see
Good,
you again.
good. Yeah, good to see you as well. And is that your title for Morinville, is the economic officer?
Actually, my official title is the Director of Planning and Economic Development.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, the municipal. That's awesome. So the big thing that's when I had contacted with you, I was super excited. You were very prompt getting back and saying, "Yeah, I'd love to do that," so that you can, help get the message out and all of that. So I really appreciate you being on, and I'm excited to kind of learn, from a municipal perspective, because we've been all talking about small businesses and what businesses can do to survive, and all of us, whether you're in any level of government or business, we're all getting squeezed in some way. So if you can kind of start just by giving me the overview of, what's happening for the town of Morinville as as this has unfolded, because I'm not really sure.
Oh, good. No, it's a great question. So for the town of Morinville, we have an economic recovery and business retention plan. And I would say phase one kind of started when this started in early March. And we have reached out to about 150 Morinville businesses specifically, give them a call to see how they were doing. And then also we took all the information from them. When were they open? Are they still open? Are they having curbside pickup? And then we have added that to the Morinville's Open Business Google Maps. And that has been actually quite successful. We also have been advocating directly to the province on small business supports, as you may have probably seen in earlier days, where certain businesses, micro businesses, didn't fall into the same categories for grants. Us and other municipalities were directly advocating for additional help. We also intend on becoming the subject matter experts for like all the federal and provincial programs that are available, so that if businesses do want to contact us and need help with their applications, we can help them through that. Also participate and engage with regional economic collaboration, also with the Chamber of Commerce, with the town of Morinville. We also follow the news cycles very closely, follow the analytics, and then try to forecast the future economic milestones that are going to be happening in the next few months. One thing we have done recently is our economic development officer, Danielle, has executed a storefront improvement program.
And I see Danielle attempting to join the meeting, and I didn't know if this was somebody that was Zoom bombing us or what. So I removed her very promptly, but I'm bringing her back in. I'm going to put her on gallery view. Hi, Danielle. I apologize for seeing you and then removing you. And I just thought it was somebody coming in by mistake. Hi, Danielle, and I put us on gallery view. And sorry, Brad, let's continue on.
So one of the things we did is a storefront improvement program where council approved matching funds for businesses that are along 100th Avenue specifically, and those businesses that are wishing to do some renovation on their exterior storefronts, and then having a matching program to help them with those funds. And we expect to be announcing those successful applicants in the next few days or so. Also, we follow the province's relaunch strategy very closely, and we do know that it's changing often, and we do try to keep up with that. And one of the messages I think we've heard from the province very clearly is that not every sector, not every retail type business is going to get exact rules. And the rules are is that you should follow the framework that is outlined by AHS and by the province, and try to do the best you can with those things. Basically working on your cleaning and your social distancing, and then how are you going to ensure that people are behaving themselves, for a lack of a better word. Second phase of our little plan, it will be from about May to August, where we will continue to proactively contact businesses before they are permitted to open. So basically, as new businesses are permitted to open, we are going to try to get ahead of that and contact them directly to see if they need any support. We will continue to reach out personally by phone to check in with businesses as they reopen. We hope to be the point of contact to be on the ground assistance and to provide one-on-one business assistance for the federal programs. We will continue to promote town lands for development and perhaps revenue generation. And we are always open to new investment opportunities for Morinville's benefit. And should give a shout out to, what is it? What is the smoothie place down the road? Nourish.
Oh, Nourish. Yes, yes.
They approached us early on about a curbside pickup program, which under the land use bylaw is called, is referred to as a drive-through. And we quickly enabled that Morinville businesses along the commercial roads could have a drive-side pickup program without any permits required. And it's been very successful, where a lot of businesses have taken advantage of that. But Nourish should get the shout out for that. And it has been received well in the region as well. And they should get the nod for that.
That's amazing. So one of the major challenges for all of this has been to get information out. So you're saying that you were wanting to, for Morinville businesses, become kind of the hub of information. So where should they contact you to be able to get into that information loop?
So we have an Instagram account. We have a Facebook page, which we just started. Normally we would fall under the town's main Facebook page, but because of the times that we're in now, we have gone off on our own and have an economic development webpage. So unless I'm wrong, Danielle, I believe it's under Morinville Economic Development. And basically we try to, as soon as we hear any news from the province or from the federal government, we try to get that information out as quickly as we can and try to relay that up on the Facebook page immediately. As well, as I said, if there are people that wish to contact us directly, by all means, please do, and we will do whatever we can to help from our side.
Awesome. Just another thing that caught my attention was the curbside, bylaw change that was needed to be made. It's been a bit of the Wild West since March 16th. Right. So I've done a very little bit of curbside, like as this was all happening. The big thing, I was transforming into video lessons, but it was guitar strings. So I made a curbside. Basically, I put out a table with hand sanitizer and made payment arrangements with people. I didn't even know that I would have. Now, I'm not a restaurant either, but would that kind of thing have fallen under a bylaw?
Well, what we did is that you permit it under, how do I put this delicately? So it is not a bylaw change. It is that we permitted curbside pickup along the commercial corridors. So it is not a bylaw change. A bylaw change would take about a month to do, even if and because we are a municipality of this size, we can do things quicker.
Right.
Municipalities have the same tools available to them. And also, as we've heard, we're in extraordinary times. And this is an economic recovery that is going to be difficult for many. And the last thing we want to do as a municipality is impede businesses from getting their products out.
That's awesome. And so you're saying that people can contact you directly if they're having trouble navigating some of the federal and provincial programs. And yeah, okay, which that's fantastic. Now so businesses are getting squeezed and we're all worried about ourselves, but the municipality itself, the town of Morinville, has to be getting squeezed too, because all the tax deferrals and all of those things. So from an economic development perspective, is that hampering your ability to deliver programs, or what do you see happening there?
Well, I can say that the municipality has also felt the squeeze, and we've also experienced layoffs with the municipality as well. And we are very aware of the finances and the finances coming down the pipe. Having your like the Morinville Leisure Center closed, I mean, that is a significant revenue loss to us.
Mhm.
Also, it's a significant loss for exposure to the municipality, where you have tournaments and things like that coming in,
Yep.
which hurts everybody down the road. And one thing that we're hoping to do right this year is to encourage more residents to Morinville and maybe a premier location for people to locate, especially as we see as Ray Gibbons Drive hopefully gets developed soon and as another access to the Henday. I would suggest that Morinville is in a prime position for growth.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. So, you said there was a couple of specific programs for people in Morinville specifically, and because people that follow me typically will be more in Morinville, and I know this will have a bit of a broader reach, so people will need to see what's happening within their own municipality. You said that there was facade, a grant and that was launched before COVID-19 was even known what it was, I believe, a few months before. Um, and that's for 100th Avenue, which I believe I'm on 100th Street. Am I right on that?
You are, I believe you fell within that. I'm going to look at Danielle for a moment. I believe you still fell within that, or it was a block or a half a block. The idea was that where 100th Street had seen improvements in the past, where you see
Yep.
some of the street facades, some of the street lighting, 100th Ave from about 100th Street heading towards the highway has not seen that.
Right.
And it was our way of trying to work towards promoting that area, seeing revitalization in that area, and showing that the municipality has some skin in the game too for where we're heading.
Nice. And I see that David Kincaid put his hand up, so I'm going to pass it over to him. It looks like he has a question for you.
Hey, Brad, thanks for coming on the show. This is pretty cool. I got just a couple thoughts. I'm a grant writer, so my company's Alberta Business Grant, so I'm writing grants all the time. So I just made a couple notes on what you said. First of all, on the facade, I got two comments and a question. The facade improvement program, I know the city of Edmonton had that for a long time, and there was a lot of didn't know about it. Even finding Googling, like, how do you Google? Like, a lot of small business owners contact me. Can I get a grant? I'm like, you can get a summer student, you can get a facade improvement program grant, like for a lot of businesses.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good program. And I know on, I think 97th Street in Edmonton, where they started updating all those buildings, it can really work well. So I just want to compliment you on, I don't know how long that program's been around, but I think that's a good one.
I can tell you, David, that this is a new program for us. I can also tell you that I am a veteran of City of Edmonton and some of the street front stuff.
Cool.
And Dev, and I can say that Danielle and her peeps, they went to every single business that could be affected and walked in the door, shook hands and smiled and said, this is what we were up to. So it wasn't just a letter that showed up in your mail that you could easily avoid when you see it's the town of Morinville. It was actually walking through the door and saying what the program was about. So kudos to Danielle for all the work that they did, especially even phone calling, like I said, over 150 businesses just to see how they're doing and to get their hours out there so that people can find it.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Sorry, Paul, can I just ask
Yeah, rock it out, dude.
The second one, I just wanted to give you kind of, maybe this is more for Danielle, but when I'm a grant writer and I have a big database on my website, and when they started making all these COVID's announcements, it was like, oh my gosh, I was updating it for a month, and it was like 3 hours a day. But I eventually just put, this is the federal and provincial government seem to be doing a really good job of updating their websites. So what I've done on mine is I just put, here's the provincial resources, here's the federal resources, and then they can go and surf it. So I'm on your website right now, but I would just make that super clear, because it's just exhausting trying to keep up with all these announcements, and there's so many of them. So that was just a tip to maybe make your life a little more sane. Okay, last question. The question I got for you, Brad, is this. Today I did a video on what I call grant delivery agents. And that is, so if an employee wants a wage subsidy grant, oftentimes the government will work with organizations, think employabilities, for example. They give a grant to employabilities, and then employabilities allocates those fundings to organizations. And I always thought, man, that's got to be tricky. So my question for you is, like, when, as a part of a municipal organization, do you, because you're just like, just a small team, right? When do you guys say, you know what, we're not going to run this program. We're going to have another organization become the experts, like the Morinville Chamber of Commerce or whoever it is. I'm just picking one randomly. That they allocate. Like, how do you decide that? I just thought, man, that's gotta be so tricky, because politicians are like, you gotta do it, but like, you're like two people, and I've just, if you could shed some light on how you do that, if that you can make sense of that question, it'd be great.
Well, Danielle works enough for 5 people, so
don't sleep, Danielle. That's the question.
Basically.
No, you make a good point. Like, things have been changing so fast. And one day you're told, this is going to open, and then the next day it's going to close. And then it's so hard to keep track of everything. And a lot of businesses that call are concerned. It's like, well, if I have a hair salon, like, how am I going to cut hair if I have to social distance? And how am I going to, and the province response is, do the best you can. And then, nobody wants to put anyone in danger. Everyone wants to be safe, and everyone wants to, at the same time, open their doors. And it's a really tricky tightrope that we're all walking right now. I hate to be redundant, but we've never seen anything like this before, and things are changing all the time. And the reason that we wanted to be a subject matter expert, so we could help them through the process, is not so much to, advocate, but it's so that most of the time when you're dealing with anything government, as you'll know, David, is that the application has to be perfect. And since we have experience with government and applications, we can at least make sure that that application is as complete as possible, so that they're in the best position to get the grants and the funding that they need quickly, as opposed to going onto the B pile and having to wait another few weeks for it to get it back to say it's incomplete.
Yeah,
I like the B pile. That's funny. That's where when I don't use David's assistance to write for grants and awards, I end up on the C pile.
I had to write grants too, so I applaud you, David. That's
so as a local business owner, one of the issues that I was having early on, and I'm bringing this up as other business owners may have similar kinds of things going on, is I was doing the curbside pickup, but if somebody needed to pay by credit card, my credit card machine was inside the building. Right now, there was 2 people in the building at any one time, did a bunch of things, and I did the best I could, but I was unclear if that was even allowed. So I looked for AHS, couldn't get clarification there. So I called the RCMP, because they're the ones supposed to be informing this. And I got told, go look at the AHS website, because they don't know, but yet they're the ones that can give me the fine. And I didn't even think, I actually should have thought to call you guys. Are you guys kind of dealing with some of those, enforcement issues? Or, I mean, I know there's the bylaw side of the town, and enforcement side that is different than you guys, but are you guys kind of working together a little bit on some of this?
I can tell you that the calls that I have had usually are, I'm not sure if I can open up, or can I open up? And when I open up, how do I have people 6 feet apart? And do I need markers? And do I need to have a plexiglass in front of me? Or do I have, and at the end of the day, I tell them the framework of AHS is what we are going to follow. And so that, are you trying your best to follow that? Are you doing your best to ensure that you don't have 6 people all huddled in front of your cash register there, all putting their hands on things, and nobody's cleaning up after themselves and things like that. I think that's more what they're looking at. They're not, nobody is trying to put such an intense squeeze on business that they can't function, but at the same time, the safety of, you know, yourself and those that come in there are paramount.
That's awesome. That's sadly is about as clear as I think anybody can be right now. You know, really, because it seems to me like if you're doing your best and you're doing reasonable due diligence, you're going to be able to open. And yeah, and I see that Glenn Walker has his hands up, hand up. Glenn, rock it out. What you got for us?
Hi there, Brad. I'm Glenn. I'm the online marketer. Work with Paul. Just had a question. What resources are you guys pointing to people online? Like, I mean, resource guides are standing out for you. You talked about AHS resources. Is there a particular guide or resource material that a person should be looking at who owns a business, and where would they get that?
There is a specific one from AHS on regarding business. If it is not on the Morinville ECDev Facebook page, it will be.
Okay. And then I just had a follow-up, if I can ask a follow-up question. Like during all this related to grants, I work with Dave a little bit on some grant related materials. With all this, you talked about writing grant applications. Maybe if you gave a couple of tips to help people stand out when they're submitting these grant applications or support, what are the kind of just some really basic do's and do not do's on these grant applications or the program or approaching these projects that you would suggest as a municipal leader to help Morinville businesses stand out a bit more?
Yeah, so just a little background. So I worked as a development officer, planner, and other things in my career too. So I've always told people the same thing, is that fill out the application completely. If you are not sure what you are filling out, call me and I will make sure that you get it complete. Because just to go back to Paul's point, the B pile is the pile you don't want to be on. And I would suggest that as long as it is complete, and if you are not sure of what you are filling out, make sure you find out what they're looking for.
That's a really good answer. And I've heard David Kincaid say a million times. Actually, David, give us your top 3 things. Do you normally say reach out to the granting agency? That's like that's step 1.
No.
Yeah, that's a classic. You just call. I think, Brad, I think that's very helpful. Like fill it out and call. It doesn't sound, but you know, you get documents in front of you.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Hey, Brad, I got a question for you. It's such an interesting ecosystem. Like Alberta, you know, large economic development organizations and municipalities have them. I was just wondering, we've covered a lot of the supports for local businesses, but I was wondering, what's the most challenging part of your job? Like, what's the most challenging part?
Well, because I'm the director of planning and economic development, you have the regulatory side, and then you have the economic development side. So in my past lives, I've sort of worked behind the scenes to help people get, I shouldn't say this, around the regulations. And so once you're in charge of the regulations, then it's a little different. But at the end of the day, we're all trying to just, you know, keep things moving. Nobody wants to be an impediment to business at all. But also to your point, right now, there's about 7 economic and development groups that we are associated with right now. You have the province right now, Edmonton Global, which is the regional one, GEET, which is the Edmonton regional one. And then you have Sturgeon County has its own little group. And then the Edmonton Metropolitan Regional Board wants to get in on economic development as well for the recovery. And then us. So, I mean, we're very well supported, and we're all in the same boat right now. Everyone is, the issues we're having in Morinville, we're having in Edmonton, they're having in Calgary, they're having in Vancouver, Toronto, London. We're all in the same boat right now, which is, and what makes this unusual is where most times you have a disaster, that it's usually something's been wiped out. So a tornado or a flood where there's a rebuild. And this is something so unusual where we turn everything off and then we're going to turn everything on again. And then what's going to happen next?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Brad, just kind of a thank you to you and Danielle. My kind of last comment is, of course, I've written grants for a long time. I worked at the legislature for 4 years, but I find the number one thing for, public servants who are accessible, like you guys are going in, knocking on their doors, you're coming on shows like this, like we, on the other side, we were saying, just fill it out properly and submit it. But sometimes I find getting access to people to come on shows that are unconventional, that are in it, a bit innovative, and just making yourself accessible is really, really awesome. And I think that makes you guys stand out. So I just want to thank you for doing that, because I know a lot of people in Morinville to get to know you and get more support. So that's my last comment. Thanks a lot for coming on. It's really appreciated.
Danielle's a positive influence on me.
So, and I'm not sure if this is a question for Danielle or you, Brad, but what is, and I know we're not through this, we're midway, and we don't even know if we're midway. We might be at the beginning, right? We don't really know. What are, given what you've seen so far since, March to now almost mid-May, what are the things that businesses can do working with municipalities to help their potential for success? Like what are the top 3 things that they can do working with you guys that are going to help give businesses just a little bit of an edge?
Danielle, do you want to take a shot, or
Oh, sure.
I've been taking all the real estate.
I think the biggest thing right now that businesses can do is pivot and look into new markets that they can do. E-commerce is huge right now. So many people are shopping online if they're able to shop online. So making sure that your business has that online presence to be able to support that is probably one of the biggest things in the short term that will benefit your business as well as in the long term. I mean, there's so many local smaller restaurants that may not have had their menu online, but now they do have their menu online. So it helps access residents and other people being able to even look at your business, as well as get yourself out there, do some marketing, do some online marketing too. So let people know that you are here. So I think those are kind of the biggest things that businesses can focus on in the immediate term.
And of course, it's different for every business. Some businesses really need to pivot. Some don't need to pivot as much.
Mm-hmm.
Brad, did you want to add anything to that, or?
No, I think she
hit it out of the park.
There.
Yeah. Glenn and David, are there any more questions from either of you? David's feeling good.
I'm good. I'm good right now. Dave's the expert around municipal and governmental affairs. I'm really treading water on this one.
I'm not. I just think, again, guys, thanks. Like, it's just awesome that you come on, and I know it's not an easy job. Like, the voter doesn't know the difference oftentimes between municipal, provincial, and federal, and they're just blurting out at somebody, and you guys are on the front line, and I appreciate a lot having been around that space a long time. So thanks.
So then while I have you guys on here, I'm going to flip this is possibly going outside the scope, but this is one music teacher's perspective on what's happening right now, is that most of the programs that are available, there is some grant programs, but most of them are loan programs for small businesses. So, and I believe something like 60 or 70% of the entire economy is small business, is my understanding. So government recognized early, small businesses need access to funds in order to be able to get through this. If a small business like mine takes, say, the $40,000 loan, and then it means you have to pay it back. And it means at the other side of all of this, that thousands of businesses are going to actually have to grow in order to stay the same size. So are you guys kind of looking ahead? I know you're like talking about recovery. What is the, angle of a whole bunch of businesses taking on debt, and how to kind of help them manage that and grow to be able to long-term be ejected out into the probably worst economy that we've seen ever. So sorry to paint such a pretty picture of what's coming, but that's the music teacher's perspective.
Well, I'll give my thoughts. I do know that there are some rental grants that are available. And I know that there are some rental, I believe there's some other grants out there too. I hate to sort of scratch my beard here and try to amuse, but I'm not sure of them all. David's got his hand up, so maybe I might let David.
Yeah, I'll just jump in and help you with this one, Brad. I just wanted to say, I think, Paul, it's a good question. And like there's government and there's businesses. And I live in that space where it's like government speaking governmentese and business or entrepreneurs, they don't have a government background. One of the things, I mean, maybe I'm completely out in another field right now, and we don't talk about much because it is a crisis out there. It's a pandemic and we're all, you know, we feel for these everyone, right? But at the end of the day, you know, one of the things you never hear people talk about is like businesses building up 3, 6 a year of cash in their bank to improve their skills. So when a crisis hits, like I was on another call, someone down in another municipality, let's just say that 50% businesses couldn't last a month without some sort of support. So where I think, Brad and Danielle, that departments like you can really stand out is like there's programs like called the self-employment program. It's put on the government, provincial government gives a grant to organizations in Edmonton. It's called a Microbusiness Training Center, and you get 8 weeks of in-class self-employment training, and then you get coaching from professionals. And I just think if I can just, I know I'm flying all around here, but just track with me for a second. No, but I think it's a big deal. Like municipalities can only do so much. You know, they're not the entrepreneurs, they're government. But how do you guys help entrepreneurs in Morinville get the skills that when that next storm comes, because it's coming, it could be a fire, it could be whatever, that they're positioned, they have the skills and the financial acumen to grow. And I think, Brad, if you guys can learn to master that, go to the council and say, hey, here are our performance measures. It's not loans, it's not grants. We're seeing skills, we're seeing training programs, we're seeing number of entrepreneurs signing up. I think that's a way you can be proactive, and then it puts you ahead of questions that Paul just asked, which is a good question, Paul, but really it's beyond, to me, it's beyond the scope of what realistically a municipality can do in a lot of cases. Unfortunately, as hard as that is for some people hearing that message.
No, Dave, to your point, David, like I always believe that my role is to try to remove barriers to expansion. And that for a lot of economic development people, that's their role. But as a regulatory person at the same time, I have to make sure that things are followed. But I have an appreciation for that. And I think that the group we have here is very business friendly and understands that while there is regulations, all the staff here are really good at finding options and finding ways to help. And it's in their DNA, and that's why they're here. And I've worked with a lot of people in the region and a lot of different parts of the region, and they're quite exceptional here.
That's awesome. And Glenn had raised his hand as well. Oh, and I think Glenn is still muted.
Apologies. No, I was just going to support. It was kind of, I think Brad just echoed what I was going to say. The breaking down barriers, and the regulatory environment is just incredibly difficult. But I think entrepreneurs are in a good place to be able to adapt quickly in this economy. People do still go outside in the rain, I guess, is my one takeaway. Is the economy is going to be the economies. We're all going to try to struggle, and maybe it will be more of a struggle over the next little bit. However, anybody who's had a business has been through tough times before. Whether even in good times, there's tough times for some people. So, let's hope and pray a little bit, and with the support of people like Brad and Danielle in the community, they can help people along the way.
Very awesome.
And one thing I've seen is that in the last, few years here, you've had, the development south of 100th Ave along 100th Street there, where you have McDonald's, Shell, and Oscar Pizza, and then potentially, and then you have a new school. You have 2 new schools which for any municipality, I had one of the ministers come up to me and say, how did you get 2 schools here? How do you
Yeah.
have 2 school openings like within a year of each other? So I would say we're very well positioned and moving forward. The exceptional opening for Sturgeon Brewery a couple weeks ago, where like people were lined up for hours. I mean, you know, that was magnificent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's right across the street from me. So
Yes,
I looked
that's
over and
terrific.
and I was like, I should go get some beer. Yeah, no, I'm going to wait. And then they sold out.
Yeah.
Good Morinville. That's how Morinville rocks.
And,
What do we
you know,
have?
that made regional news.
Yeah. And we have a liquor store per 2,000 people in town, or less. That's awesome.
Yes.
Well, I really appreciate you guys coming on, Danielle and Brad. This was fantastic. And yes, a round of applause. We're going to unmute ourselves and give Danielle and Brad a round of applause. There we go.
Now,
There we are. We got Glenn, yeah, and Gordon. And so, you know, thank you. Oftentimes it is hard, as David said, to get municipal you know, people onto a small, you know, live stream like this. So I think you guys are to be commended for giving us this time, and it's very much appreciated. And can't say enough thanks for that.
all right, guys. Thanks.
All right, you have yourselves an awesome week, or until I see you, and I'll see the rest of the mastermind next week.
I'll be around for some guitar strings this week.
All right, right on, Brad. Talk to you soon.
See ya. Thanks, Gordon.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you guys.
You're welcome.
Okay. And I will stop my video.